I would say that I can introduce her in many different ways, but I decided to introduce her like a wonderful human being, a wonderful person. So I think that she has done a lot of job, not only for the people who are working like Agile coaches, but the people for Agile, in general. I think that she's helping the people to make the better version of themselves. And we thought that this could be one of the best options to have her and try to transmit everything. And because we think that she represents one of the vision that we are trying to share with you. So I want to introduce her quickly. So she's a coach, a facilitator, teacher, and inspirer. For years, she has been a passionate player in the Agile coaching profession. In 2010, she co-founded the Agile Coaching Institute, and currently she serves as a president emeritus as well as a co-lead of the Agile Coaching Institute competence-based coaching curriculum. She's the author of the Coaching Agile Teams, which is still one of the top 10 Agile books years after publication. She has an alphabet soup or certifications, certified certified coach, ICA Agile expert in Agile consulting, project manager professional, Six Sigma Grant Belt. Are you counting already? Organizational relationship system certified coach. She's also trained a cooperative coach and leader. And in 2018, she engaged as a student in a very intense program in internal facilitation. So guys, please a big hand to Lyssa Adkins. Thank you so much, Lyssa.
Hola. Buenos días. I have been so excited to be here with you because I want to share with you some stories. I want to take you a few places, and I want us to all be ready for having a great 2 days together. So, we're going to be talking about the idea that perhaps we in this room are the leaders we've been waiting for. And to do that, I'm going to share a story with you. You're going to have some experiences with each other, and we're going to get some information from you that I'll use live in this talk, because it needs to be specific to what's happening here right now. So are you up for that? Are you up for a little bit of fun and interaction? Yeah? Okay, all right. Good, all right. All right, good. So here is a question that I have been considering for about a year. We say that we value individuals and interactions over processes and tools, right? We say that. It's even written down in the Agile Manifesto. And so if that is the case, why do processes and tools so often run the show? So we're going to be exploring that question together, and I don't know the whole answer, but I do have two ideas about why processes and tools might run the show, even though we value individuals and interactions more. So we'll be exploring both of those ideas that I have. Great. We're going to start with a story of an experience I had in Peru about a year ago. And that experience changed forever my direction and my idea of what Agile is here to do. We're going to do the story in two parts, a piece of it now, and then we'll pick up a piece toward the end. So in this first part, I am I get invited to go to the jungle with my daughter. We are far in La Selva, like way, way far away from electricity. The reason we're there is that my daughter is a university student. She's now 21. She's studying human rights, social justice, and environmental sustainability all together. And she came home from school and said, Mom and Dad, I have a list of 10 places we have to go in the next 10 years. Because if we don't go now, they won't be there, or they will be so utterly destroyed that they won't be recognizable. And so I said, okay, get on the internet, do your research. And she found this program in Peru where you could go into the jungle and essentially be a manual laborer for people who are doing experiments in agroforestry to try to figure out how to create a sustainable agriculture without destroying the forest. So that's what we did. And I tell you what, when your young adult child says to you, hey, will you come with me? No matter where they're asking, the answer is yes. Right? So I said, okay, sure, I'll go to the jungle with you. So it's as you might imagine. It is incredibly, incredibly beautiful. That's a picture of my daughter, Kaylee, and me at the bottom of a strangler fig tree. It's a very, very huge tree. It is gorgeous. It is the birthplace of so much biodiversity. It is the lungs of our planet in a very literal way. We need the jungle. And I gotta tell you, it's really not that pleasant. It's really not. It is muddy, it's hot, nothing ever dries. Your shirts, your socks, your underwear are nasty the whole time. This is where we slept. This was our bunk. Those were our boots. Those of you who've been in the jungle know that you want to always put your boots upside down because things will crawl in them overnight. Yeah? And everything in the jungle wants to kill you. Everything in the jungle. The first morning they took us out in the jungle and they said, don't touch that, don't touch that, don't touch that. Oh, and if you get bit by one of those bullet ants, you'll want to die. You won't die, but you'll want to die. Yeah? So we're out in the jungle hacking through, basically creating a trail. And we're in water up to our knees. And this is the time my daughter turns around and says, hey, Mom, if we're going to see anaconda, it's probably going to be here. And so all of this to say that the jungle is an amazing place, and it's a very serious place. It's exactly like childbirth. It's incredibly messy, but the result is worth it. So you always take your machetes, because you never know when you will have to use it to cut a trail or to get something out of your way. Yeah? So we were in the jungle, and the important thing here is that we learned so much about the natural world, my daughter and I. And when we first came into the jungle, you go 2 hours downriver by boat, and it was beautiful, and there was lots of water and incredible animals. We saw capybara right on the shore. It was amazing. And then a few days later, when we went back into town, the level of the river had fallen by 20 feet. 20 feet. And I was completely confused by that. It's a river. How does the river go like this so much, right? And so I asked the woman, and she said, well, the Amazon, the rivers are very sensitive. All this means is that we haven't had rain in the cloud forest for the last few days. So 20 feet dropping just because they didn't have some rain in the cloud forest for the last few days. Okay, so remember that piece. Remember that piece, because this is a picture of that very river about 20 feet low, and you can see all the sandbars. It made the river very dangerous, actually. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to come back to that. Now, back to our Agile world for a moment. Back to the question, if we value individuals and interactions over processes and tools, why do we spend so much time talking about processes and tools? Yeah. And I think there might be two ideas of why that is. One has to do with the fact that we are in a huge change in how we interact with one another on the planet. The top left picture is an old classroom. Actually, it's a current classroom in many places, including the US, probably here too. The top right is the sort of classroom that is starting to emerge in the world. But do you see that individuals and interactions are completely clear in the top left? You know exactly what you're supposed to do when you walk into that classroom. You face forward, you listen to the teacher. In the top right, it's a little more complicated. Students don't necessarily know exactly how to behave, exactly how to interact when they come in, and it's the sort of complication that matches our more complex world, but it's not straightforward. The same thing with the bottom pictures. The idea that an organization is a machine is an idea that has been here for about 100 years, and most people still believe that. However, you might be experiencing that organizations are more like rainforests. The idea of managing a rainforest is ridiculous. However, that's the sort of complexity we find ourselves in our modern organizations. Okay, so let's go to the first piece about us getting used to a new way of interacting as individuals. And for this piece, we're standing on the shoulders of work from people outside the Agile world and some people inside the Agile world. What I need to do now is to lay just a little bit of theory into the room, and then we're going to use the theory, okay? This is something called integral theory from one of the world's most prolific philosophers named Ken Wilber. And it's also based on much research by amazing other people, right? And it basically gives us a way of looking at anything more completely. Anything you want to look at, if you want a more complete or more holistic view, you can use this model. And it's very simple. I, we, it, it's. 4 different perspectives to look through to get a more complete view. Okay? Now, if we give these quadrants some names to make it clearer, the I perspective is a psychological window that we could look to. We is a cultural window. It is a behavioral window, and its is a systems window. Okay, keep your phones up because I'm about to tell you how this maps to Agile, okay? All right, so psychological becomes Agile mindset. Cultural, team culture and relationships, and it becomes practices and roles. The its quadrant system becomes organizational environment, okay? So if you want to look at anything, a team, a department, a program, a value stream, anything, you can put that thing in the middle and look through these 4 different windows, and you will see much more information than if you just stay with your own native perspective. Okay, we're about to use this model, and I know I've just introduced you to it. I get it. It's like a really fast introduction, but you'll be able to do this. So I want you to start getting a sense of what your primary perspective might be. Which of these 4 windows do you look through first when you're looking at a situation? And let's just make it simple. Let's look at an Agile team. And let's look at a scenario. So you can read this on the screen. I'm also going to read it to you so that you have time to think about it. And as you think, what you're looking for is, what's the first idea I have for fixing this problem? And whatever that idea is, see if you can locate it in its quadrant. I, we, it, or its, okay? Okay, here's the scenario. The Agile Program Office has mandated retrospectives. To make the retro efficient so people can get back to real work, the Scrum Master uses the same facilitation design each time. Some team members think the retro is a waste, and others want to use it to improve. The second group complains about the first, saying they are anti-Agile. Just a small problem. Just a regular, everyday mess like we're all in. Yeah? So here's what we're going to do. Were you able to locate what quadrant your idea came from? Were you able to do it? Let's check it out. Let me give you a hint. If your idea was something like, hey, I need to find out what's going on with those individuals on the team and maybe in the program management office. I need to find out if they really have an agile mindset. I need to find out if their mental complexity is strong enough for the complexity of this situation. If that's something like what you were thinking about, your idea is probably in the agile mindset or the I quadrant. If your idea was, hey, we should start measuring this. I bet you if we measure this and we figure out what the heck is going on so that the retrospectives can become more efficient and so the team can do the practices better, then maybe your idea is from the it, or the practices and roles quadrant. If your mind went to, okay, we got to look at this thing systemically. We've got to look end to end and figure out what's going on here, because it's not just this team, it's not just the PMO, something else is going on. We got to map it out. We probably are even going to measure it and come up with like efficiency numbers, yeah? If that's where your mind went, your idea is probably from the it's, or the organization environment quadrant. If your idea went to, hey, let's get in there and see what's going on with this team. It seems like the interactions are really not so good. And maybe like the team's interaction with the PMO doesn't seem to be so great, so let's see about that. If your idea was sounding like that, maybe it's from the we quadrant, or the team culture and relationships. Okay, so I've talked a lot. You might have forgotten your idea already. But if you didn't forget your idea, let's see what's true in this room. If your idea was from the Agile mindset quadrant, stand up. The I quadrant, the Agile mindset. Okay, now look around and see how many people, yeah? We're just making a map. Okay, thank you very much for standing. Have a seat. If your idea came from the we quadrant, the team culture and relationships, please stand. Okay, more people. And look around, quite a few people. Okay, thank you, have a seat. If your idea came from the it quadrant, the practices and roles, let us see you, please. Okay, great, thank you. About the same number of people as the I quadrant. Now, if your idea came from the it's quadrant, the organizational systems, the environment, please stand. Okay, more people. So here's what I saw from here, is that the most people stood up for the we quadrant. Second most was its, organizational environment, and then I and it, yeah, about the same number of people. So this is not an unusual result in an Agile crowd. The fact that people say my first idea goes to the we quadrant is not an unusual result, but here's the issue. Although we have a great affinity and a great attraction to individuals and interactions and the whole we quadrant team culture, we might not be skilled enough to do what's required there. So I want to introduce you to a whole new way of thinking about working in that quadrant that I believe will help us be skilled enough to really make an impact there. Okay. Here's the thing. I want to go back for a second. I believe that what we've experienced in this room maps directly to this integral model. So here's the integral model, and I'm going to overlay these two panels. It's still there. I realized at some point that we can map the Agile Manifesto statement directly to this, and I think this is emblematic of what happened in the room here. So I quadrant are individuals, and we quadrant, interactions. We like that, don't we? Over, processes and tools, and structures for scaling. So, I think probably the most important thing to say about this is that we have a lot of desire. We have a lot of desire to work in the I and we quadrants in our community in general. And now I want to show you what it's really going to take. Okay? What it's going to take is that we pay attention to who we are being together on a team, such that we can actually create good products while increasing the team's capabilities. And the 3 particular capabilities that we need teams to improve are their collaboration, their creativity, and their conflict. These are competencies for teams. Right. Now, as near as I can tell, there are 2 really good ways to help teams increase those specific competencies. One is developing your coaching skill to help them process their human system better, and the other is developing your facilitation skill to help them process their content better. Okay? The piece we're going to move into now is a way of thinking about developing your coaching skill at a new level. Okay. We're going to use that piece of string that you got. Everyone got a piece of string, so find your piece of string. What I want to do is give you an experience of paying attention to a team in a different way. So go ahead and just hold your string up like this. There you go. So you notice that with just one hand holding it, it's not doing very much. It's just hanging there. Nothing much is going on, right? Now, let's let this string be in relationship to another hand. So you notice when there's now a relationship, if one hand moves this way, the other hand has to follow. So go ahead and move your string around a little bit. There you go. Good. All right. Now, we're about to simulate the web of relationships on Agile teams. To do this, I know it's going to be hard. I'm going to ask you to work together, but completely silently, because I'll need to give you more and more instruction as we go. So your first job is to just notice who's sitting around you and get in groups of about 7 people. You're going to have to stand up. Go ahead and stand up. You can come into the aisles, off to the side. Okay, now that you've found your people, allow yourself to move to silence. Come to silence. Okay, I'll follow your hand raise, sure. Great, thank you. Okay, so imagine that you have been assigned to be a new Agile team, you and these people. And what usually happens when a new team gets together is that some people are more friendly and outgoing, right? And those people might give a side of their string to someone else. So maybe 2 of you or 3 of you in the group, go ahead and make a connection with someone else. Give a piece of your string to them, yeah? So you're holding one side of your string and the other side is to the other person. Great. So now you've established a relationship. Good. Here's what's going to happen. Over time, there are going to be many interactions between people, and other relationships are going to get established. What you want to do now is to create a web between your strings strong enough to hold an object. Create a web with your strings strong enough to hold an object, and it's best if you do this silently. I'm not kidding. Come to silence. I want you to see what happens with the interactions without using the verbal channel. Go ahead, create your web. It's going to have to be a strong web. It's going to have to hold an object. And go ahead and pick up a cup or a pamphlet near you and see if it can hold the object. A piece of paper near you. Maybe someone has an object they would use. Okay, So things are going great on the team. You can produce a product. You can hold the object. That's wonderful. And then 3 people on the team start to get into conflict. Show the conflict with your strings. See what happens to your product. Okay, everyone, hold your strings up high. Hold your web up high. Hold your web way high. Look at it. Look at this web. If you want to impact teams in the we quadrant, you pay attention to the web. You give the team their attention to the web. You ask them about the web. You help them become more intelligent about the web, and they will figure out the answers to their own hard problems. All right, put your webs down. Thank your partners. Have a seat. All right. Come back, come back, come back, come back. Great. Okay, so in organization and relationship systems coaching, that web is called the third entity. It's just an easy name to talk about the team spirit or the entity, essentially, that gets created anytime 2 or more people come together. Now, here's the thing. Human systems are highly intelligent, incredibly intelligent, and mostly unconscious of themselves. So when you're doing your work with teams, the more you can help teams understand the nature of their web, the more they will naturally, without you having to try to figure it out, they will naturally move to more healthy self-organization. So I'm just wanting to introduce you to this notion that it's possible to work with teams in a more complex level that actually matches the complexity of their problems. Now, if you're curious about this, here are some first steps. The first thing I suggest is that you develop your professional coaching skills. There's a lot of them to develop. The first 2 you must have. The first 2 you must have are self-management and presence. Because if you help the team look at the web through your own agenda, they won't trust you, right? It has to be for them. The other thing is there's a book called Creating Intelligent Teams, written by one of the creators of organization and relationship systems coaching, and that will give you some good ideas. Okay. All right, so that was my first idea about why processes and tools might run the show, even though we like individuals and interactions so much. My second idea is a little bit broader scale. If I think about what's happening on our planet right now, in the business world, and in our ideas about organizations in general, I think we are moving from the idea that an organization is a machine to the idea that an organization is more like an ecosystem. And here are some beliefs that people truly believe when they view the organization as a machine. I wrote these 8, 9 years ago in the Coaching Agile Teams book, and near as I can tell, a lot of people still believe this. Maybe a lot of people you interact with who you're bringing Agile to still believe these things. It might match their world. Here are those same sorts of ideas, but when you have the belief system that an organization is an ecosystem, they get replaced. For example, you can't nail down scope. No matter how hard you try, you can't do it. So let's let scope flex and nail down the other pieces. That's the organization as an ecosystem idea. Now, if you believe, well, let's just check it out. How many of you believe the things on the screen here more than the ones I just showed a minute ago? Okay, so like a lot of you, right? Okay, here's your job. Those of you who raised your hands, and even those of you who didn't, who believe these things, your job is to understand that you have come a long distance. And you are now in a new place compared to people who believe the ideas of organization as machine. That's the same terrain they have to cover. Your job is to help them cover that terrain. And it's not just a matter of teaching them. It is not just a matter of convincing them. It's a matter of helping them literally increase their mental complexity so that they're able to deal with the complexity of the problems around them. And when they do, these ideas will simply be common sense. Let me show you what I mean. We are in a tremendous mess and opportunity on the planet right now because we are moving very rapidly through our own mental evolution. I'm going to talk with you about 4 different stages of adult human development. The first is called truth force. At this stage of human development, we use the word amber just as a shorthand term. At this stage of human development, your life is pretty black and white. You really can function by being in your role, by conforming to rules. It all works very well. Yeah. There's so much honor in doing your duty for a higher cause. And so you really do believe that sacrificing now will give you something glorious later. Yeah. So that's the first level of mental complexity and adult human development that we often see in our modern organizations. The next is called strive drive. I can already feel kind of like the moving and shaking of this one. Like this one's like, hey, I've got a good idea. Let's see if we can innovate. Let's see if we can get market share. Let's see if we can win. Yeah? Strive drive is always like accumulating the next thing. Yeah? So that reorganization didn't work. Let's try another reorganization. Oh, Six Sigma is good. Oh yeah, PMP is good. Oh yeah, this Agile thing. Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. Do you feel the? Go ahead and get into the motion of strive drive. Let's get it. Let's get it. Go ahead. Come on, get your bodies going. Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. Yeah? So you can feel like how this one moves, right? But this one also kind of goes in a circle. Because at some point, how much more do you actually need? When is more enough? In Strive Drive, the idea that humans are resources is real. It actually matches this level of mental complexity. But we don't like to be treated like resources, do we? We don't like to be treated as if our interactions with people are just mere transactions. So then comes human bond. Now, each of these is literally a step up in mental complexity, which means that as the human being develops, they can literally see more of what's going on and deal with it without freaking out. Human bond comes on the scene because we don't live in a black and white era anymore. We don't live in the era of the machine where the same inputs give us the same outputs. We live in an era where we have to get a bunch of people together and talk about options and figure things out. The way forward isn't straight. The way forward is kind of curvy, and we have to keep talking and adjusting. That's what human bond is good at. Human bond uses the diversity of ideas and backgrounds and cultures. It needs it, it loves it, and people love to belong together. And that's what we get in human bond. Now, here's the deal. Human bond is kind of like this. Go ahead and do this. You ever feel like an Agile team where you're all sitting around talking, everyone's getting to be heard, it's all cool, but you don't go anywhere? You just keep going around and around. Yeah, so that's the feeling of human bond. That's when it can get a little bit unhealthy, right? And so the next one that we evolve to from that is called flex flow. This one is totally different than the last three. So at this level of mental complexity, each individual human being is incredibly clear of their purpose. They know why they are here on planet Earth. They come together to create some impact for themselves, for the world, for good. And when that is done, they disband and they come together again. So even organization structures are quite changeable. Now, this isn't a matter of just saying, hey, I like that. Let me get my organization there. It's not a matter of that. The people in your organization, hang on, let me handle this. I've had a cold the last few days, and I'm getting better now, but you know. So here's the deal. It's not just a matter of adopting ideas from FlexFlow or ideas of organizations as ecosystems. It's a matter of helping everyone increase their literal level of mental complexity such that this value system comes online. Yeah. It is a stepwise process, and you cannot skip steps. Now, here's the thing. You know, Agile doesn't necessarily match these levels of mental complexity very well, and it does match others quite well. So let's look at that piece. Yeah? So at Amber, we say you can have tradition-driven Agile. You can have a certain kind of Agile, but it'll be very tradition-driven. Maybe a minimum idea of Kanban can work here very well. Do you notice the Agile Manifesto is backwards? Okay, think about it. If you believe that the world is actually quite straightforward, that there's a capital T truth, and you can create a process to produce the same output again and again and again, then you actually believe in comprehensive documentation over working software. That would make sense to you. Processes and tools over individuals and interactions? Of course. Individuals and interactions, my God, that's too variable. That's ridiculous. We have to have processes and tools. Okay? So notice that there's some sort of limited Agile that can happen here, but it will be quite limited. At Orange, hey, working software, yeah, people pay for working software. They don't pay for comprehensive documentation. Give me some working software. Because Strive Drive loves results. Yeah, give me faster results with Agile, sure. Okay? So, Manifesto starts to come online a little bit here. At Green, it starts to come online quite a bit more. Green being human bond. Individuals and interactions over processes and tools, absolutely. Because we know the only way to solve problems is through empowering people, actually empowering people. Not just talking about empowering people. Not just a slogan on a wall, but we believe it as a corporate strategy that empowering people is the way to solve our problems. Okay, so our manifesto is coming online here. This is where customer intimacy is actually a valid strategy. So, you know, interaction with the customer over contracts, yeah, this makes a lot of sense here. And at FlexFlow, the entire manifesto comes online, especially responding to change over following a plan. There's lots of planning. There's lots of planning. If you're in the mentality of FlexFlow, there's tons of planning. You just don't believe your plans. Yeah, you adjust. You figure out what's the most important thing to do next. Every single individual is thinking about that. And so it comes out of their pores. Okay. So what I want to let you know is that the aspirations that Agile comes from, the very four descriptors, the very descriptive things, this over that, this over that, this over that, this over that, they come from the mentality of human bond and FlexFlow. So if you love Agile like I do, and if you buy into the Agile Manifesto and you're trying to make it come true in the world, congratulations, you're on the leading edge of human development. Now, this doesn't mean we're perfect. Because I got to tell you, there's plenty of times I don't walk my talk. There's plenty of times I get scared and I reach back to an old capitalist structure to run my business, and I know that's not the right thing to do. So you don't have to be perfect. You have to just keep going. Because we are all moving toward human bond and flex flow. That's where all societies are moving toward on the planet right now, every single one of them. And we happen to be on the leading edge of that. What this means is that we just might be the leaders we've been waiting for. So often Agile coaches say to me, but my leaders don't get it. How can I get them to get it? And I'm like, okay, keep working on that. But more importantly, work on yourself. Because adult human development is the leverage point. You are eventually going to be an organization leader, and anyway, you can lead from where you are right now. So let's develop ourselves, and your development starts first. So that sounds like kind of crazy, right? I'm just throwing out this little small thing to you. Yeah, increase your mental complexity, develop yourself. Let me give you 3 really straightforward ways to do that. Because I've been studying with someone named Rob McNamara, who's an expert in adult human development, and he's helped me see it clearly. What I'm going to ask you to do is assemble your superhero team. You're going to have 3 superheroes in this team. The first one is Cognitive Connie. Who you're looking for here is someone who thinks systemically, someone who does not freak out when the world around her changes and she has to figure out how to work that change in. Someone who eats change for breakfast. So look for this person when you're in a meeting and people throw out a really hard challenge, and this person is able to help the group understand the challenge and bring a wider perspective. And you might even go to that person and say, hey, I want to talk with you about how you do that, how you deal with problems in a more complex way. Literally ask them to be your mentor. Have conversations with that person. That's your first superhero. Your second superhero is intrapersonal Aikika. She has a very clear sense of her own capabilities. She doesn't overinflate her capabilities, but she also does not hide them. She is able to give her gifts in the world in a way that is not arrogant, but is full of service. You're looking for someone who keeps calm, who has a sense of equanimity, a sense of being connected to everyone. Because don't you know we need to keep calm during these times of change if we're going to keep thinking. Then the last one, interpersonal Aisha. So this is someone who's very good with other people. This is someone who can help groups through conflicts. This is someone who leads by vision, not by saying, that's the hill we're going to take, and everyone follow exactly in my footsteps. But what she does is she says, here's what we're trying to do. Here's the good we're trying to create. Here's the product we're trying to create for human beings to use. Will you join me in that? And she brings in all of everyone else's ideas to come forward. So it's a facilitative leader, not a dictatorial leader. That's what you're looking for here. So I'm suggesting that you assemble your superhero team and keep practicing in the culture of complexity that you're already in. Because your situations are complex, are they not? And the most important thing is use Agile on yourself. Once you've assembled this superhero team and you see something you want to duplicate, a skill someone else has that you want to achieve yourself, then focus on that one thing. That one thing. Do it. Measure your impact. Make a plan again. Do it. Measure your impact. Make a plan again. What does this sound like? Agile on yourself. Yeah. There's a new book coming out in January that I've had the pleasure of being a reviewer of. And there's much more ideas for how to evolve your mental complexity in this book for you, for every single one of you, because you are a leader, no matter where you are in your organization. Okay. So I want to come back to Peru. I got to tell you, I love Peru. I really did. So where we left the story was that my daughter and I were coming out of the jungle. The river had fallen by 20 feet. We were very confused about that. And about a week later, we're traveling. And we are having this wonderful guide, Jimmy, who's teaching us all about the Incas. And this is a picture I took standing over the very famous place, Machu Picchu. Yeah. And Jimmy is telling us all about how advanced the Incan culture was and how amazing it was. And I was completely spellbound. And then all of a sudden, the clouds lifted, because there's mountains all the way around that site. It is just breathtaking. The clouds lifted, and I could see this beautiful snow-capped mountain. And I said to Jimmy, I said, "Oh my gosh, that is gorgeous." And he said, "Yeah. You know, you used to be able to stand here and see snow all the way around. All these mountains used to be snow-capped." Now, remind you, I'm there in July, which is the height of winter, right? And so only this one mountain peak has snow in the middle of winter. And so I said to Jimmy, I'm like, "So, you know, how long ago was that, Jimmy?" And he said, 10 years ago. I expected him to say 100 years ago we had snow on these mountains. But just in the 10 years he's been guiding people to Machu Picchu, the snow is almost gone. Now, I got to tell you, that was a bad moment for me. Because I was thinking about the fact that those mountains are literally the heart of the Amazon. That snow melts, creates those rivers, creates all that biodiversity, creates the ability for those plants to breathe for us and give us the oxygen we need to survive on this planet. And we're not having enough snow to create that chain of events. So I got to thinking about myself and thinking, you know, if we are in that sort of imminent crisis, what am I doing with Agile? My experience of Agile is that it can accelerate any mission you give it. It can accelerate the mission, it can make it more meaningful, it can create great products faster. So, the question to myself, and the question I'll pose to you now, is if we are the leaders we've been waiting for, if you are a leader that we've been waiting for, what are you applying Agile to that is worthy of you? As you move into this 2 days, as you learn so many new things, I want to offer you the possibility that part of your mind could be thinking about this amazing thing we have called Agile and what is actually important to apply it to. What would have you feel like your full worth is being used in the service of something actually important? For me, it's helping us avoid near imminent disaster in our global environment. For you, it doesn't have to be global. Actually, for some of you, it's going to be global. I can already feel that possibility in the room. For some of you, it's going to be community. For some of you, it's going to be in your family. No matter what you do that you apply Agile to, no matter what scale you apply it to, it's grand if it's worthy of you. So I want to leave you with that thought as we move into our day. And I wonder if maybe some of you might whisper to someone else in the next couple of days a secret desire in your heart, a place you think you could apply Agile to accelerate the mission of something really important and really worthy of you. Thank you.